The floor under the Queen's throne cracked with a sound like breaking glass, and every guard in the hall froze instead of moving. I was standing at the back wall of the embassy chamber, holding a tray of translation devices, when the hover throne of Queen Visera of the Nalkoth Empire tilted sideways and began to fall. Nobody moved. Not one guard, not one noble, not one of the tall, silver-skinned Nalkoth officials standing near her. They all stepped back, instead of stepping forward. I did not know the rule yet. I had only been on this station for 6 days. Nobody had told me that touching the Queen without permission was punishable by exile, or worse. All I saw was a woman about to hit a stone floor from a height that would break bones even on Earth, let alone on a planet with heavier gravity like Nalkoth. So I ran. I dropped the tray, crossed the marble floor in 3 long steps, and caught her before she hit the ground. Her whole body landed against my chest and arms, and I staggered back but held my footing. The throne crashed behind us in a shower of sparks and broken glass. For a moment, nobody in the room breathed. Queen Visera opened her eyes and looked up at me. Her skin was pale silver blue, her eyes a deep violet, and her expression was not fear. It was surprise. Pure, complete surprise. "You caught me," she said, her voice low, almost a whisper, translated a half-second later through my earpiece. "You were falling," I said, because that was the only sentence my brain could produce. Then the guards moved. All at once, spears and pulse rods pointed straight at me. A tall guard with armor the color of dark iron shouted something in Nalkoth that the translator rendered as, "Release the Queen immediately or be destroyed." I did not move. I could not move. My arms were still wrapped around her, and if I let go too fast, she might fall again, this time onto broken glass and metal from the throne. "I'll set her down slowly," I said. "Just give me space." The guard hesitated. Queen Visera raised one hand, silencing him without a single word. Then she looked back at me. "Do you know what you have done?" she asked quietly. "I caught someone who was falling," I said. "On my planet. That's not a crime. It's just what you do." She studied my face for a long moment. Then, slowly, carefully, I lowered her to her feet. She stood on her own, brushed a piece of broken glass from her sleeve, and turned to face her guards. "Lower your weapons," she said. "The human saved my life." The guards obeyed, though their eyes still burned with suspicion aimed at me. My name is Daniel Ashcroft, and until 6 days ago, I was just an engineering liaison for Earth's small embassy team on Threshold Station, a neutral meeting point between a dozen alien governments. My job was simple: fix communication devices, keep the translation network running, and stay quiet during diplomatic meetings. Nobody expected me to end up holding a queen in my arms in front of half the galaxy's ruling powers. After the guards backed away, the hall erupted into chaos. Nobles shouted questions. A group of Velkari diplomats, tall insect-like beings with clicking mandibles, whispered rapidly among themselves. Someone was already recording the entire event on a floating camera drone. I realized, with a sinking feeling, that this moment would not stay quiet for long. An hour later, I was sitting in a small side chamber with 2 very nervous members of Earth's diplomatic team, Grace Whitfield and Owen Marsh. Grace was pacing back and forth so fast, her boots clicked against the floor like a countdown clock. "Do you understand what almost happened out there?" she said. "Touching a reigning monarch without consent is a criminal offense in Nalkoth law. You could have been executed on the spot." "I didn't know that," I said. "I saw someone falling. I caught her, that's all." "That's all," Owen repeated, shaking his head. "Daniel, you don't understand how fragile this alliance is. Earth just joined the Concord 2 months ago. One wrong move and every species in that hall will see us as dangerous, unpredictable animals. Or, I said, they'll see us as people who don't let others get hurt when we can stop it." Grace stopped pacing and looked at me hard. "You don't get it. The Nalkoth are heavier than humans. Denser bones, thicker muscle. Her fall should have needed at least 2 trained guards to stop safely, and even then, most species in the Concord would have been hurt trying. You caught her alone, without training, without warning, and you didn't even stumble." I hadn't thought about that. In the moment, I had just reacted the way anyone back home would react if someone tripped near a staircase. I didn't calculate her weight or the physics of the fall. I just moved. "She's stronger than she looks," Owen muttered. Before I could respond, the door slid open, and one of Queen Visira's personal aides stepped inside, a young Nalkoth man with sharp cheekbones and calm eyes. "The Queen requests the presence of the human, called Daniel Ashcroft," he said. Grace's face went pale. This could go very badly. "Or it could go fine," I said, standing up. "I'll find out." The aide led me through a long corridor lined with silver banners, bearing the Nalkoth royal crest, a curved blade wrapped in vines. We reached a private meeting room where Queen Visira sat, no longer in her formal robes but in a simpler dark blue outfit. She looked younger without the crown, more tired, more human somehow, despite being nothing like a human at all. "Sit," she said, gesturing to a chair across from her. I sat. "Do you know why my throne broke?" she asked. "No," I admitted. "Someone sabotaged it," she said. "A rival house wants my position weakened before the treaty signing tomorrow. If I had fallen in front of every delegation on this station, injured or worse, it would have been seen as a sign that I am unfit to lead, that the gods themselves oppose my rule. My enemies would have used that story for the next 100 years. I stayed quiet, letting her continue. "But instead," she said, "a human caught me, effortlessly, in front of every delegation. Do you understand what story that creates instead?" I shook my head slowly. "It creates a story of strength," she said, "of protection. Already, the guards are calling it an omen. They believe the gods sent a stranger from beyond the stars to save their queen, because the heavens themselves refuse to let my enemies win." She smiled slightly. "I do not believe in omens, but I am not foolish enough to ignore how useful one can be. So I'm not in trouble?" I asked. "You broke a law that exists to protect me from assassins," she said, "but you broke it to save my life instead of ending it. I think even the strictest judges in my court will forgive that difference." Relief spread through my chest like warm water. "There is something else," she added. "The scans taken during the fall show something unusual. Your strength, your reflexes, your ability to absorb impact, they are far beyond what your species' size and appearance suggest. My scientists are curious." "Humans aren't that special," I said. "We're not the strongest species out there." "Perhaps not the strongest," she said, "but hidden, unassuming. My guards trained for decades to develop half the reaction speed you showed without any training at all. That is either very fortunate for you, or very dangerous for the rest of the galaxy, depending on how one looks at it." I didn't know what to say to that, so I said nothing. The next day, the treaty signing happened as planned, this time with reinforced security and a new throne built overnight by station engineers. I stood near the back of the hall again, holding a tray of translation devices, trying to disappear into the background, the way I always had before. But this time, people noticed me. Nalkoth guards nodded respectfully as I passed. A Velkari diplomat clicked her mandibles in what I later learned was a gesture of approval. Even Grace, who had been furious with me the day before, gave me a small, tired smile from across the room. When the ceremony ended and the treaty was signed, sealing a new peace agreement between 3 major powers in the Concord, Queen Visira rose from her new throne and addressed the room. "Before we close this historic day," she said, "I wish to recognize someone who reminded us all of something important. Strength is not always found in the biggest army or the sharpest blade. Sometimes it is found in a single person who chooses to act when others hesitate." She looked directly at me. "The human, Daniel Ashcroft, saved my life yesterday, without knowing the cost it might bring him. He acted not out of duty, not out of law, but out of simple decision to help. I believe that is a quality worth honoring, and worth remembering, as our peoples move forward together." The room erupted into applause, dozens of species clapping, clicking, stomping, or making whatever sound their bodies allowed to show respect. I stood frozen at the back of the hall, completely unprepared for the attention, my face burning with embarrassment. Later that evening, Grace found me on the station's observation deck, staring out at the stars. "You do realize," she said, walking up beside me, that you just became the most well-known human in this entire sector of space. And it happened because you broke protocol, ignored the rules, and jumped in without thinking. Sometimes that's the only way to do the right thing, I said. She was quiet for a moment, then laughed softly. You know, when the ambassador sent me your file, it said you were quiet, careful, and completely unremarkable. I guess they missed one detail. What's that? I asked. Unremarkable people don't catch queens, she said. I smiled, looking out at the endless field of stars beyond the station window. 6 days ago, I had been nothing more than a technician, fixing communication devices in the background of history. Now, because of one moment of instinct, one small mistake that turned into something far bigger than I ever expected, my name would be remembered across star systems I hadn't even heard of a week earlier. All because I could not stand still and watch someone fall.